Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to sqadia.com. My name is Osama, and today we are talking about data handling in medical statistics. The specific topic that we're going to cover in this section is data entry, in which we are going to talk about what is data entry and what is automated scanning for data entry, and also the advantages and disadvantages for automated scanning data entry. So what is data entry? Data entry is actually after the collection of the data. We usually enter any sort of spreadsheets or softwares which are used for statistical analysis, such as SPSS. So that process is actually known as data entry, and it is very important and integral for the purpose of research. So before data entry, the data need to be coded, as we already discussed in the previous lecture of data collection, that we ascertain or we give different codes to different responses in our data. Another important thing that we already discussed is qualitative data has to be converted into quantitative. So qualitative data is, for example, gender, either male or female, is qualitative data. It has a qualitative response in the form of string, either male or either female, because being male or being female is actually a quality of an individual. But when we are analyzing it in SPSS, we need to convert it into a form which SPSS can better analyze, and that would be quantitative. So we give different and specific labels to each response, such as 1 to male and 2 to female, or 0 to male and 1 to female, depending on our coding that we decided at the level of data collection. So that is very important, and now we are actually converting the qualitative data into quantitative data. A unique numerical identifier must be given for each subject, and that is actually something which is different from any identifying information such as name, etc. So this is a unique numerical identifier given by the researcher to every subject, so that every subject would be different from the other one. Computerized data set stores in spreadsheets with rows and columns whenever we are talking about data entry. And as we already discussed, each row consists of a specific and a unique subject, whereas each row consists of a different variable, and the variables that are actually entered in rows can be entered via the variable view in the SPSS, which we already discussed, in which we talked about introduction to SPSS. So if any data is missing, it can be indicated by a blank cell, but it is preferred that we use a specific code for it, such as a dot or any value which is not possible. For example, we talked about gender. We said 1 male and 2 female. So if we write, for example, 9999, so that doesn't correspond to any of the entries, either male or female. So that can be kept as a code for missing value. So here is an example of a data entry, and if we look at this, so there is a specific ID number which is there to identify each separate subject, such as here you can see that ID number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, as you can see here. Now if we look at this column here, which is the sex or gender, so it is 1, 1, 2, 2, 1. So 1, 2 does not denote gender, but what has happened here is that gender is in the form of male or female. It is qualitative, and it has been coded and converted into quantitative by giving, for example, 1 to male and 2 to female. Okay, now here, gestation 25 plus 5, like the values or entries like this do not work in SPSS, because it is just for descriptive purposes, and maybe it is entered in the form of an Excel sheet. So 25 plus 5 means 25 weeks plus 5 days. So this has been converted into gestational days, in which they are not in the form of weeks and days at the same time. They are in the form of any one unit, and here we can see it is in the form of days. So 180 days. So this is the form in which you can analyze this variable in SPSS. Either use it as a continuous variable, or either use it as an outcome variable, or either use it for averages and means and anything like that. Now birth weight again is here in the form of you can see numeric data. Smoking is in the form of either yes or no, so it is a qualitative variable, but once again it is again converted into a quantitative variable, and the categories has been denoted as numbers, and 0 is no and 1 is yes. And that's all about the data entry and how you can code it, as we already discussed in previous lectures as well. Now, there's a specific technology which is becoming increasingly common nowadays among researchers, and that is automated or automatic scanning for data entry. There are actually specialized software programs such as Teleform, which prepare and make forms. Now, these forms can either be filled online or they can be printed on paper and filled by the participants and then scanned automatically into a computer program. And this is similar to, as you remember, when in your student life you appear for some sort of an objective exam and they have OMR sheets on which you mark your responses and it is scanned and then converted into a computer. So a scanning operator oversees the process and responds to any queries that the software identifies when it cannot scan a particular field. So if there is an error in any of the fields, so there should be a scanning operator and that person should manually check that why is the error there and how he can solve that error. Now what happens here is that either you take electronic forms from emails or any other form, or you can also take hard forms and you can scan them and put in your computer, and then they are captured, and then they are then validated and line item matching is done, and you get your data entry automated in an automated form. You don't have to do the data entry yourself. So here's an example. If you can see here, there are open responses as well as closed responses. So closed response in the form of checkboxes. So for example, here's a question and here are actually the checkboxes. So there would be an error if a person ticks more than one box, and there can also be an error if the filling of the form is not correct. But this one is pretty easy to understand that how the computer picks it up, because it's similar to an OMR sheet in exams. But it also picks up text very well in the form of boxes. So you have boxes here, and when you write here any word or any letter, so it is actually transformed into a computer program. But sometimes it can be confusing for the computer as well. For example, 1 and 7, if not written correctly, can be misinterpreted by the computer software program, and it should be checked for manually. So what are the advantages for automated scanning data entry? First of all, it saves a considerable time normally needed for data entry and checking, specifically if there are a lot of participants and it's a very big research. So it is very effective in that, because you don't have to enter the data of every participant yourself. It is ideal for questions that require tick boxes, because it is very easy for the computer software to scan them and interpret them and enter the data. But data capture is accurate since it is automatic. And there is no chance of personal error, but the error can be there if their responses are handwritten and they are not in the form of tick boxes or close-ended questions. Then it is another story. So what are the disadvantages for automated scanning data entry? Once again, specialized software has to be purchased, which can be very expensive, and forms need to be designed and set up using the software. Now that is a problem, because it is only possible if the researcher or if the person who is designing those forms has the knowledge of using that software. So user needs to be familiar with the software and needs to get himself a training for that. And another problem is that it is less flexible for studies with non-tick box questions and open-end responses. So that is actually a problem. Handwritten numbers need to be written carefully or they can be misscanned. As I already gave you an example, that 1 and 9, they pretty much look the same if they are not written properly. So that can be misinterpreted by the software. So that was all about this part of the series of lecture, and I hope you learned something new out of it. Thank you very much for watching sqadia.com.